Welcome to Popcorn Planet. I'm Andy Signore, and the day stopped early today, day 23, but it wrapped. It wrapped. Plaintiffs and defense have now rested. We are waiting for closing arguments to begin tomorrow, but the jury was sent home, and we are breaking down some of the moments. We were stalling a little bit just because I'm trying to get some clips in, etc., but very excited because we have a special guest who just dropped in that I wanted to introduce, as well as our usual guests. But Christopher Melcher, attorney at law, it's Kim. So happy to have you guys back, but also happy to introduce Greg Ellis to the show. Greg, are you there?
I'm here, Andy. How are you? It's great to be on.
So happy to have you, man. So many people have been trying to connect us for a while. For those of you who are unfamiliar with Mr. Greg Ellis, my God, Lieutenant Theodore Groves from Pirates movies is here himself. Star Trek. My God, you have a huge resume, my man. Congratulations to all your work. You also are an advocate for against supporting men in divorce battles, an author, etc. Really honored to have you on the show, and I wanted to tease you here because a lot of you have been trying to connect me with Greg. I want to do a proper interview with Greg if you're willing. We'll tape it for a video for this weekend. You guys can come back and watch. So stay tuned. But just happy to have you here because I'd love to get your reactions. But yeah, welcome to the show, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, thanks. It's great to be on the show. Thank you for all that you've done and all of your viewers and listeners have done in the advocacy and the support. It's phenomenal.
So thank you for that. I want to keep this sort of focused on today and just sort of the case in general. I assume you've been watching the trial, yes?
I have. This morning I had some work that I had to do, so I dipped in and out. So I haven't been I'm not really as up to speed as possible. But I did see clips, and particularly Amber Heard getting a bit testy. I still find it a bit strange that she is asked a question by Camille and then turns to the jury. And there were moments today that she just completely ignored Camille. And it was like, hello, I'm the attorney that's asking the questions. You listen to me and you respond to me. But hey-ho.
It is really weird. Yeah, Camille did break that, kept the control. We're going to talk about that in a bit. We'll get there because I know Christopher had some opinions on how Camille did today.
Hey, Andy, I have a question for you very quickly. Is there any news on this, the incoming, outgoing text messages that we saw in evidence yesterday?
I didn't see anything. Did you, Christopher?
No, I was hoping to see some clarification if that incoming meant that Johnny received rather than sending those messages. But we didn't see it.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I just feel like I was surprised they rested on that doctor. I guess it did help. We talked a bit, and it did seem to help. But yeah, they had more time. I guess there was rumors you were hearing, Christopher, too, right? That they might bring in other guests that they were trying to maybe save some time for. There was clearly a lot of positioning as to what they were going to actually do. But I don't know. I just thought they rested with a little bit of it just wasn't I was hoping for one more little thing. Then again, yesterday was so much fire that I guess that's what we can't expect that every day. But yeah, I know that incoming, outgoing thing has been all over. Everybody's like, wait. Everyone's emailing Ben Chu to get it adjusted. And I guess they didn't find it important to go there. So we didn't find that out, to tell you. What we got was a hand expert in the beginning to sort of reiterate the fact that, yeah, it was more likely a bottle is definitely possible and more likely than Amber's scenario of the phone, which now Amber's saying isn't what she said, because Amber's always very sure of it when it matters, when it affects her. And then when, it comes down to saying her testimony and putting out the fact, she oftentimes forgets. In fact, today's theme, as she was on the stand, and we'll get there, is she literally said everybody's lying. Every other witness is perjuring themselves, and they weren't there. She literally said the Hicksville manager, I've never seen him before. He wasn't there. I just find it really hard to believe. Christopher, as the lawyer here, how good of a defense is that for Amber to go up there and just say, no, that person's lying. I never saw that person before.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically your case, is that I'm right and everybody else is wrong. And that just really is rarely true in any scenario. So again, I think overall the fault that I have for Amber's team is not taking accountability. And I wish she would have been encouraged to somehow do that at the beginning of the case, to say how awfully she had acted, and then the jury could focus then and believe her potentially on some of these other allegations. But so far, I don't recall her taking accountability for anything. It's always somebody else's fault.
Yeah, I mean, Greg, have you noticed that as you've been watching? I don't know. Had you had a chance to meet Amber? Was unsure of that. You didn't. Well, did you know her at the time?
I will say that I can be forgetful. I forgot to put my video on, but now it's on, so you can see me. We all have those moments. I agree with Christopher. I think, it's really going to come down to credibility, relatability, and likability. I wasn't a fan of the judge early on. She's grown on me as the trial's gone on. And I think, it's difficult to get into the jury's minds, but it's really about perceptions and character and who's credible. And I try as best as I can, obviously being a friend of Johnny's, to kind of be unbiased. But and I do think the defense has done a pretty good job in light of the evidence that they've been presented. But, when someone's weaving a web of lies, eventually they get found out. They find themselves out,
Did you have never met Amber in real life? Or you have?
I have not had the displeasure. No, I've just heard a tremendous amount of stories from, particularly from Pirates 5, and from in the industry, from studio execs, producers, directors, particularly actors. I mean, I can't tell you, Andy, the amount of times I've heard, "I will never work with that woman again." She is. I mean, I wrote on Twitter, and I try to be as generous as possible with people and not get into, ad hominem attacks on character, attack arguments and opinions. But she is, I think it's fair to say, universally detested. She was, even before this, she was not a well-liked human being. But after this, we'll see.
Yeah, no, I've heard the same thing. A lot of people have been reaching out, and that they just don't like her. She's just very unlikable, and that makes it hard to succeed in Hollywood. You have to be likable in this town for people to want to keep hiring you to get gigs. I was just curious if you, from what you've experienced, how she's acting, if this is typical, because she really is doing, as they said in the beginning of this is the performance of a lifetime. The most telling thing she did, though, today, which was just shocking to me, was she said out loud, "I'm not smirking and laughing." She literally said it, and we have the proof of it. She's just another lie that she's caught in, that she just can't help herself in this sort of weird attempt to try to, say she's the best actress in the world, and that she's not acting.
I did see last night. I was given a video, and I was not going to post it, but I did because it was so fascinating. For someone who's talked so much on the stand about Johnny Depp's issues, quote unquote, with drugs and alcohol. I don't know if you saw the video of her putting the tissue up her nose and sniffing, and
Yes.
then kind of licking her lips, and that may have been the snort that was seen around the world, because I'm still curious as to what was in that tissue, aren't you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't know if it was cocaine. That doesn't make sense. The theory, I believe more, is some sort of something to attempt to make her cry, is what some makeup people have said. There are specific things that she could have tried to snort, like meth. What was it? I forget. I don't want to say the wrong thing, but there are things that she may have tried to do that to try to cry. And the same person who gave me that tip's like, she still couldn't because she's dead inside. Was the quote that I heard. And I believe that.
What makes me sad as well when I think about her family, her family and friends. I know people will be like, "Oh, why do you have empathy and compassion for her friends and her family?" Well, they are human beings, and I think she's opened this Pandora's box. I think she was naive and ignorant, and then there was a part of her that was willful and went about the reputation savaging and destroying of one of the most beloved actors of our generation in the entertainment business, arguably the greatest movie star, particularly a few years ago before all this went down. And the fact that she thought she could get away with it, riding the wave of Me Too, and it's staggering to me that we've heard crickets from the Me Too movement.
Yeah, it's super bizarre how they've defended her. There are articles still coming out today. I mean, Amber's team was trying to shade Kate Moss for coming. Okay, well, fine. We've got one woman wasn't abused by Johnny, but hey, he still lost in the trial, and he's going to lose another. It's just the way they put it out there, the attitude. It just all drips the same mean girl, Regina George vibe that Amber just exudes. She surrounds herself with people that mimic that same attitude we've seen, and I think it's very telling. Also, welcome Nerd Lekka is here. What's up, Lewis? Welcome
Hey,
to the
what's
show.
up, crew? What's up, everybody?
We have a packed house now, and also I forgot Ann is on there as well. Thank you all guys for being here as I make sure Ann is here. All right, we have a couple clips. I don't know. I don't know how much longer you have, Greg or Christopher. Let me know if you guys need to drop out at any point. I wanted to try and get to some of these clips that happened today. There was a metadata guy, and I thought this was interesting. We have just a couple of minutes to watch this example of yet another professional witness on the stand for Amber and just refusing to be truthful.
Here today, you cannot testify that all of the photographs produced by Ms. Heard are authentic originals, correct?
No, I can testify to the ones that Mr. Neumeister identified with specificity.
All right. My question to you, though, is as you sit here today, can you testify that all the photographs produced by Ms. Heard are authentic originals?
As I sit here today, I cannot opine to photographs that have not been presented to me that are not authentic originals.
Oh my God. What a shitty non-answer. The answer is no, because I don't know those. Yeah, of course I don't, because I don't know what photos you're referring to, nor could I.
With me that in some instances, Ms. Heard produced multiple versions of the same photograph, right?
Yes.
Yeah, you just talked about it, right?
Yes.
All right. And you'll agree with me that the XF data of some of the photos produced by Ms. Heard reflect the use of a photo editing application?
No.
No?
I'll agree that they show the use of the Photos application, which is a sorting and editing application.
So what he did just there is admit, yes, there's a photo editing, but it's more than that. It's also an organizing it. So he's ignoring the question and not answering the question, which is, yes, iPhoto is organizational. That's true. But it's also an editing app. I've used it. You can totally mimic and adjust and change the saturations. Christopher, it's weird that they weren't allowed to talk about the colors during the cross. Did you notice that? How do you think that got by?
Johnny Depp's photo guy, this was a designation problem. So when you call an expert witness, you have to disclose to the other side who the expert is, what their qualifications are, and what they're going to testify to. So in the designation, this particular expert didn't mention anything about vector scopes and looking at the color saturation of these images, but then did this color testing through this vector scope on the image and wanted to testify about that, and Amber's team was able to block that because it wasn't part of the designation.
So stupid, because it's so important, because those photos we see are clearly manipulated and edited and saturation boost to try and make things look like they're there that aren't. And suddenly all that stuff wasn't allowed to be talked about for some weird reason. And they were very pointed when Johnny's data guy was on point, which I'm still frustrated, Christopher, because this was a motion that Johnny's team filed for so long, saying they haven't done this. The judge ordered restrictions and guidelines that they were supposed to follow. These whole photos should have just been not admissible, right? How did this get in? And then this is a knock on Penny. The one time I feel like it really wasn't fair that not only did she not follow through any of those guidelines, but then she put restrictions on what was allowed to say about them.
Yeah, so a lot of times in law, we have objections, and then the judge says it goes to the weight, meaning that the jury or finder of fact will determine what credibility, if any, or what weight to give onto that evidence. So that's what kind of happened here. But hey, you take what you got and you pivot to the best part you can make of that. And here it's kind of good that she brought in these photos, because what we're about to see probably in this clip is a comparison of obviously two images that are of the same event being depicted here, right, that are radically different. So she manipulated it. And so hey, if that hadn't got into evidence, then we wouldn't see the manipulation.
Let's check that clip.
What you were quibbling with is that it will both sort and edit.
That is correct.
Okay. Are you prepared to swear under oath that each and every photograph provided by Ms. Heard and entered into evidence in this court is an authentic original?
Based on the metadata that I have reviewed of the specific photographs I have reviewed, I can confirm that those are authentic original photographs. For the ones that Mr. Neumeister identified, I identified photos that were authentic originals.
No, I'm asking you a broader question than that. There were multiple photographs that Ms. Heard provided that were entered into evidence in this court. Are you testifying that those are each authentic originals?
I have no testimony or opinion on those, because nobody's provided me opinion that they're not.
Can you see those, sir?
Yes, I can.
You'll agree with me that those are different pictures?
Visually, they look different to me, yes.
All right. Sir, you just agreed with me that those two photos are different photos, correct?
I agreed that they were visually different, yes.
So they are two visually different photos that were created at the exact same hour, the exact same minute, the exact same second as each other, correct?
That's what the daytime metadata shows, yes.
And the metadata shows something else too. They have the exact same file name, don't they, sir?
Yeah, that's
Yes,
really
but that's
telling.
not embedded metadata.
Right. How would you have this jury decide which one is real?
I think you would need to look at the software metadata field, which I haven't looked at. I don't recall if I looked at for this particular field, but I think that's what even Mr. Neumeister said, that you need to look at the software metadata field.
But we have two photographs entered into evidence in this court that have the same identifying information, but in your view, look visually different, correct?
I don't agree that they have the same identifying information. I don't see a software metadata field here.
The identifying
Software
information
metadata.
includes the hour, minute, and second they were taken, this picture were taken.
I see that.
No further questions.
Yeah, I mean, so it's just like these witnesses are impossible. So it doesn't seem to help matters. And I've had, like, especially since we did a video this morning talking about the metadata and the photos, which we did a standalone this morning. Check it out if you missed it. I've had so many people now reach out and email me, photo experts. I try to get a couple of them on, but the timing didn't work. But I will just say, from all these experts that list out all this data, this guy wasn't being truthful. It wasn't being truthful based off of like photo nerds who are like, no, I don't even know how to read it all to you. I can just tell you, numerous experts have reached out to me furious at how inaccurate this guy was, but yet another professional expert. Does that surprise you, Greg? I'll go to you. That Amber's
No,
team is
it really doesn't. What I think we've seen here in this trial is, it's kind of like the prosecution team counsel are like playing in the big leagues and the pro leagues, and for my money, these and the experts in particular, Dr. Corey and others, and when you look at the Hughes and this chap, they're really just not up to speed. It's almost like they're paid professional experts rather than experts who work in a particular field that occasionally give expert testimony. And I think there must be a circuit of paid experts, and they just churn out the same thing, and they know how to professionally answer. So it's been a little underwhelming, the experts from the defense counsel side. I'd be interested to hear what Christopher thinks.
Yeah,
Well,
Christopher,
absolutely.
how did that go?
Yeah, I mean, they did a brilliant job of taking away this whole mantle of expertise and talking about all this data that none of us understand. Just put up the two images. Obviously, one's been altered. You don't need to be an expert for this.
Heard,
and
you
the
just
fact that this gentleman wouldn't acknowledge that, oh, yeah, obviously somebody screwed with that photo. It just totally takes away all of this nonsense that he had said previously. So that's, again, mostly trials are an exercise in common sense, and we bring in experts, but a lot of times that they're called to testify to things that are well beyond their expertise, like Hughes did, because they're being paid to give that opinion, and they're hoping that they can fool a judge or jury into believing them, and oftentimes they do, and that's why that circuit exists.
All right, well, we have a packed house. Again, I want to get into the main fight, though. I don't want to keep teasing it. Now I finally have the clip ready. Thank you so much, Alicia, who helped me tighten it, because it was a little bit. We have a 10-minute best of Camille Vasquez versus Amber Heard. I'm so happy we got Ann Silvers here as well. Thanks for being here, Ann. Definitely want you for when we get to Dr. Hughes versus Dr. Curry, especially. But Lewis, Kim, Greg, Christopher, thank you all. And if anybody needs to duck out, just raise your hand or tell me quick, and you can duck out quickly.
Thank you, Andy. I'm gonna duck out, but thank you. We'll definitely get together and we'll record something. And I just want to say, my YouTube video 4 in my series,
I have
The
it right
Truth
here.
Comes Out.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
Boom. When's this dropping?
Just dropped right now.
Oh, boom. So we'll add it to your queue. When you're done live, guys, we'll remind you, get the link from the mods, and we'll watch this afterwards. But go over to Greg Ellis's YouTube channel, support it. And yes, Greg, let's connect tonight or tomorrow. We'll try and bank a video for the weekend. I'd love to talk to you more in depth. So stay tuned for that, guys. Wonderful to meet you. I want to connect you to Christopher, too.
And Greg, and I'm a fan. I'm a fan of what you're doing on the respondent.com. So anyone who's been through a family law matter or had a family member, you should be looking at the respondent.com because you're exposing on there what's happened in family court. And I would love to be part of that conversation in terms of solutions maybe that can be done. So well respect what you're doing, and nice to be on the show with you.
Thank you, Christopher. I really appreciate that. And although the subtitle for the book, The Respondent, exposing the cartel of family law, doesn't necessarily mean that there aren't some attorneys in family law with integrity. And I believe you may be one of them. So I look forward to connecting with you. Thank you very much. And thank you, Andy, and everyone else.
Pleasure, Greg. We'll have you back. Enjoy your day.
You too.
Thanks so much, man.
You too.
So cool to have him here. That was very fun. Glad we got to have that. So many of you guys have been trying to connect, and I'm happy it happened. And yes, we've been in talks. And yes, I will try to I want to have a more in-depth conversation one-on-one. So stay tuned for that video with Greg. And lovely to have him. All right. Now it's also just easier now because now I like when I have a cube. There we go. Now it all fits. All right, let's get to this main battle. Again, if anybody needs to duck out, don't just raise your hand and duck out quietly or come back, whatever. But here we go. The main event. Ding, ding, ding.
Oh,
I wish I had my buzzer. I used to have a ding, ding, ding. I used to. I don't know where it went. Ding, ding, ding. I do have this ready.
Fatality.
Let's get ready to rumble.
I know a lot of us are all team Queen Camille, but be prepared. Christopher's going to offer some critical feedback, guys. Don't hate, because I agree with some of the things he's going to point out here. But here we go. Let's start the battle between Amber and Camille. Now, actually, preface, Amber did a whole speech. She did a whole theatrical crying, da-da-da-da-da. I'm going to react to that after the live. I have Mike Reardon team. We're all editing. I want to juxtapose what she said with what she actually does. So I'm working on that edit. We're going to react to that later. I want that to be a video that hopefully you guys will all tune in and click on and watch and share afterwards, because to me, I was screaming during her opening. I couldn't believe the things coming out of her mouth. She doesn't smirk. I'm not smirking. I'm not laughing. She brought up Dr. Curry. And I mean, how stupid of it was her to even say that woman's name. It just proved how unnerved she is by her, no?
Yeah, there was so much in what Amber said that I look forward to talking about. Yeah.
Oh my God. Well, so I know we want to go there, but I want to spend more time focusing on this back and forth, because I think this was the more important stuff, because blah, blah, blah lies. Here we had Johnny's team to combat the lies. Who won? How did they do? Let's watch this together. I'll pause. I'll try and pause every minute or so to give us a chance.
Ms. Heard, you just testified that this case has been very hard for you. So let's talk about that and why. Your lies have been exposed to the world multiple times, right?
I haven't lied about anything I've been here to say.
You heard Mr. Knight testify that it was actually you who was upset with Mr. Depp spending time away from him. Isn't that correct?
How would he know? He wasn't there.
You heard Mr. Knight testify that it was actually you who was yelling at Mr. Depp.
Again, I've heard a lot of people say a lot of things to be involved in the Johnny Depp show, but he wasn't there. He doesn't know. And he certainly doesn't know what happened behind closed doors, like most people.
He testified he was there, Ms. Heard. Did you hear that?
That's his testimony, yes.
Ms. Heard, you told this jury that you had no idea the press was going to be at the courthouse when you got your TRO on May 27th, 2016. Do you remember that testimony?
I said I did not have anything to do with it, yes.
No. My question again. You told this jury that you had no idea that the press was going to be outside after you got the ex-party TRO on May 27th, 2016. Do you remember that testimony?
I apologize, I must have misunderstood Ms. Vasquez. No idea whether they were going to be there or not. When I walked into the courtroom that day, it was completely quiet, still, empty. Even though I had given Johnny's team notice that I was filing a TRO,
Your Honor, this is not
we
responsive.
had no reason to
Move
believe
to
the
strike.
press knew.
And Your Honor, I would also ask that you instruct the witness to please stop talking once I lodge an objection.
Your Honor, she's trying to answer the question as best she can, and Ms. Vasquez is misrepresenting to her what she testified to.
I'll strike the last part as non-responsive. Just if you could just answer the questions asked. Okay, thank you, Ms. Heard.
All right, we'll pause there because we got two instances. We have Hicksville and TMZ that we're in the midst of, but let's go back to Hicksville as we react to this panel. Christopher, I do want to go to you first. There was a part there where, I don't know if she cut it. I guess it's fine she did, but she was saying like, yeah, this guy's lying. I don't remember. I never saw him there. How smart is that? I get to the jury.
Look, I mean, I'm not a fan of this cross-examination. I think it was very, very poor. And the reason is that Camille did not follow the rules for cross. The rules for cross have been developed for a long time, and they're tried and true. And basically, you confront the witness, admit this fact. The witness says no, and then you pull out a document that irrefutably proves the truth of that fact, such as a prior statement. And then you don't say, oh, and therefore you lied and let him explain. You move on to the next fact, and you do it over and over and over again. So the approach that Camille used on this was, well, you heard this witness, Knight, say something, or you heard this other witness say something. Are you calling them a liar? And it's sort of like, okay, this is just an argument now. You have nothing to confront them with that would show irrefutably that Amber just lied. An example would have been Amber said on her direct questioning with her own lawyer, saying, because of the Adam Waldman statements in 2020, the world began to hate me. Well, that would have been easy to come in there and saying, well, Ms. Heard, isn't it true that the world hated you before 2020? And here are all the examples of that. Something like that. The only point that she scored on cross, I think, was when she was confronted with this photograph of her walking out of the LA Superior Courthouse on May 27, 2016 with a big old apparent bruise, and then a photo the next day showing no bruise. And again, that's an example. You had a bruise on this date? Yes. Did you fake that bruise? No. She didn't ask that necessarily. Then the next day, here's another photograph of you. Yes. No bruise apparent. Yes. And then don't ask, and therefore you put makeup on. Never ask, give the explanation. Camille did not follow. I know there's huge Camille fans. Oh my God, can do no wrong. Honestly, this cross was done poorly. It was a lost opportunity, and it was an argument that didn't need to occur. You do argument on closing argument. You take all those things and you tell it to the jury when there's no opportunity for Amber to respond. Anytime she argued with her with these questions, it's like, well, are you saying this person is telling the truth or lying over you? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Let me explain now to the jury why I believe they should accept my truth instead of what this witness said. So again, not very well done. Sorry to say, bring on the hate. But just saying, as a lawyer who does this, day in, day out,
he's right, guys.
Lost opportunity. I am sorry, but again, you can disagree with me.
No, well, forget it. And I was curbing it because I knew it would come. But guys, just pause, take a breath. He's not against Camille or Johnny, so remember that. He's against. He's a very experienced lawyer who's bringing some facts. And when Christopher told me this, he's not wrong, guys. It could have been more effective, is what he's trying to say here. But now noted. As I was telling you when we were texting during the trial, I felt like she was going Tom Cruise, Few Good Men on this. That she was doing this for a show, for the cameras, to to just scream at her. And I think a lot of people reacted strongly to like, you get her, yeah, screw it. That's what was happening here, which was emotional. But it was emotional, and that in a court of law with the jury, that may not actually make. My question that I just wanted to get back to you is, pointed with the clip we just watched. Amber is getting a little emotional. She is, and she's spouting things out. I agree Camille could have done it better. But with Amber now saying, well, that Hicks guy wasn't even there. I don't even remember him. I don't even know. No, he's lying. And she's now going to do that multiple times throughout the people that Camille are bringing back. Is that not effective to just basically have Amber be up there and say, everyone's a liar but me?
No, it's not effective because that could have been done in closing. And again, we have modes here of this trial, cross being one of them, closing being another. You don't interchange the two. So on closing argument, she could have said, look at what the Hicksville guy said. Look at what the security guard said. Look at what these other witnesses said. If you were to believe Amber, you must then believe all of these people are lying. That's effective. But what Camille did is try to do that with Amber on the stand. And then she's saying, well, hey, this Hicksville guy wasn't really around, whatever. He didn't see what I saw because he wasn't around. Oh, that you're talking about Johnny Depp's employee, the bodyguard? Well, of course he's going to lie. And then she got into saying, well, that was what I was talking about in this op-ed piece. That, I made a statement against Johnny, this powerful guy, and then all these people came and supported him against me. Got that? Her to explain her own op-ed piece. So again, you do not argue with a witness. You force them to admit facts against their interest. And it's like, it's training with them. It's like, admit this fact. No, I don't. Here's a document. You just lied. You do that 5 times, then it's like you now have control of the witness. And once she realizes that she's under control, then she may have this big explosion. This is what we were waiting for. Dr. Curry told us the buttons to push to make Amber explode. Those buttons were never pushed because she didn't explode. And like we were texting beforehand, right at the end of the direct, Amber was flooded with emotions. I know people say, oh, she's faking everything. Whatever she was portraying, a flood of emotions to saying, look, because of this trial and all this, that, there's death threats. There's say people should do stuff to my baby, all this stuff. She was very emotionally, excited. And then said, no further questions. Camille could have gone up right there, asked a couple questions when she's in that super state and got to maybe see the monster come out. But instead took a 10-minute sidebar with the judge on who knows what. And then Amber's sitting there calming. I think that was a lost opportunity.
That is such a fact, because it would have been amazing to see her finally in that sad, distraught place turn to no. You know what I mean? Because she would have caught her, and I can't. I'm sorry, guys, but yeah, he's totally right. That opportunity was hugely lost, and it just showed that. Yeah, and someone just said in the comments, Camille's smart, Amber street smart, and Amber totally played her. I think Amber in the defense knew exactly how Camille was going to come at, aggressive, point out all these. We just got all these wins, boom, 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 and you're totally right, because now they gave her an opportunity to create doubt on all those witnesses before we got to closing, which they should have saved for closing to catch the lies. And then, by the way, remember when she said this? Well, this guy said that. Remember when she said this like, but you're right. She got, at a Joe Play, she gets the opportunity to come up with an excuse for every single person that they just lost points on. Now she almost leveled the playing field a bit, in a way, if the jury was actually paying attention.
Exactly. It was a complete, and lost opportunity. And again, not trying to criticize anybody, but a lost opportunity to see with lawyers is they have a script. She made her script yesterday. These are the questions I'm going to ask. And then when the witness starts talking, the lawyer doesn't even listen to the witness and just saying, I'm going to do my script. That was a tactical error on Camille's part, because what Amber did was humanize herself. She was saying, look, because of this trial, and we all know this to be true, that the world hates Amber. And to me, it's like, I understand. I am very disappointed at what Amber has done here, but she is a human being, and she's entitled to dignity and, not have death threats made against her, or whatever's going on, or whatever she thinks going on. It's like, we need to treat each other well, even though we dislike each other. Mm-hmm. So she's saying, like, look, this is happening to me and my family and my friends, and I'm devastated by it. And what Camille could have done if she was listening to that is just saying, that's true, and that's really horrible what you're going through, but that was happening before Adam Waldman said anything in 2020. Let's go back and look at 2016. The statements that were made about you then. Those statements were made about you because you went in and made a false allegation against Johnny Depp. You own that. She could have then taken that mantle away from her. But again, it said, no, I got my script. My script is, let me go and ask you about all this other testimony and say, did you hear that? Yeah, I heard that. Well, we all heard it too. And are you saying they're a liar? Yeah, pretty much what I'm saying.
But and again, I'm just so frustrated, because the other thing you just said that makes me angry, again, you texted this earlier as we were watching. Why did she not take all of that humanizing that she just did and be like, well, Miss Heard, they hated you before Adam Waldman's name, correct? Like, she would have had to address that. She would have had to address that right then and there while she's in the heat of the emotional moment. Amber also said, look, I'm no saint. I don't know if anybody caught it when she said it. And I was texting Christopher, I hope she jumps on that. So you said you were no saint. Can you elaborate? Oh, because she's never, ever admitted that on the stand, and she slipped. I'm no saint, but. Well, all right, well, what do you mean? You said you're no saint. What, can you explain what you're no saint about? There were moments like that could have really backed her into a corner more specifically, and instead she played the playbook, and it's frustrating because she was ready to blow. We were all on our edge. We were all enjoying it. I enjoyed it, watching it, because I like watching her sort of lose it. But I agree that, and I said it at the end when it was all over, I kept defending Camille like, oh, no, this is the Jack Nicholson. She's going to unnerve her. She wants all this stuff. She would keep piling, and then she's going to come and stab her with the And there were points made. I think she earned some points. I do agree. I do disagree. And I think she earned some points. We'll get to them. But she never got the kill shot. She never got a kill shot on Amber. And that was really unfortunate. And as Christopher's now laid out, I'm a little bit worried. I want to get to everybody else's comments. Let's just play another minute, and then I'll come back around to you guys because we have a lot to watch here.
And you heard Mr. Tremaine's testimony that he knew to dispatch the paparazzi to the courthouse on May 27th, right?
I heard him say that he knew that, yes.
Yeah, and that he dispatched paparazzi to the courthouse to capture a picture of an alleged bruise on the right side of your face. Do you remember him saying that?
I remember him saying that.
That information must have come from your team, right, Ms. Heard?
Absolutely not. Why would I want that? What actual survivor of domestic violence wants that?
But the one TMZ got the day before your deposition in the divorce was incomplete.
I don't know. I haven't seen it.
He testified that at the beginning portion of the video where you set up the camera, that wasn't included in the video that TMZ received.
I don't know what video TMZ received.
I'm talking about Mr. Tremaine's testimony, Ms. Heard. Let's just focus on Mr.
You're asking me to
Tremaine.
repeat his testimony?
No, I'm asking you if you recall hearing him say those words to this jury.
Yes, I heard his testimony. We all did.
And he testified that the end of the video where you can be seen smirking. I know you testified earlier that you haven't been smirking in this trial, but you sure were caught on camera smirking in that video.
I disagree with that.
Was also not included in the TMZ video.
Everyone can watch that video and you can determine whether you think it's funny to me or not.
That's because the video came from you, right, Ms. Heard?
No, it did not.
You
That
edited
video
out
did
the
not
portions.
come to me. Come from me.
Ms. Heard, you edited out the portions that made you look bad before sending it to TMZ.
You're very wrong about that.
So
if
that
I
only
wanted to
Mr.
leak
Depp
information, I
looked
could have
bad.
done it in a more effective way, a lot sooner and a lot more.
Because you
I
knew
was
exactly
living
how to
with
do
a
that,
mountain
right?
of this evidence. If I wanted to leak it, I could have done a lot more with it.
I thought you testified earlier in this trial that you didn't know how to leak things.
I
Remember
don't.
that?
That was a
Picture
win.
of you and your friend.
That was a win. That was a win. I know Christopher's being harsh, but I think that right there is what she needed to do more of. And there were a few missed opportunities at the beginning. I'm not saying she bombed it. I think a lot of people are getting emotional or frustrated because I get it. We're so invested in this. But you got to remember the jury doesn't have all the backstory either. They only get them what we hear, right? And so that's why we're being a little bit critical here because it's important we have it. Yeah, go ahead, Lewis. You were going to say something.
But at the same time, they're there watching her, and they're also watching her. You know, like I agree. If you would have heard this on the radio, she's trying to humanize herself, right? Mm-hmm. But as you're watching her, she's going in and out again from like crying profusely to like serious, pissed off, and ruining it by her mannerisms and her action. Like, I don't know how effective that is, but Mr. Melcher, is presentation and perception important? Because even though you're stating that Camille didn't do well, like catching her in lies and stuff like that, she sounds like she's dominating the conversation. Is that important? And also, Amber going ahead and like crying with crocodile tears, no tears coming out, getting pissed, and then all of a sudden crying. It's like almost like her acting didn't get better from the last time. Is that important?
Well, sure. The jury's definitely going to assessing the demeanor of Amber when she's on the stand. Now, I like the leaking thing. Absolutely, she picked up on. Oh, you said you could have leaked stuff better had you wanted to, which is never a great excuse to say.
No, very telling.
But you said before you didn't know how to leak. Yeah, boom, one time listening to the question and reacting to it. But again, the whole line of questioning should have never been asked. Yesterday, TMZ former guy Tremaine Morgan comes in and testifies that, look, I mean, the implication from that testimony is it must have come from Amber. Had they left it alone, that would have been fine. Now here, Camille opens the door again to that, to saying, hey, you heard that testimony. Basically, do you agree with it? No, I don't agree with it. I didn't leak it. So now the last thing the jury has heard is a denial. Now, maybe you don't believe it. And maybe she's thinking, okay, I'm going to get her to deny it. And the jury's going to think like, but again, you know, we don't really want to open those doors again to give people an opportunity to explain something that had been set up beautifully the day before.
Anne, well, I wanted to get your thoughts, Anne, because how do you feel like this is playing off with Amber? You've been following this and such.
I loved Camille's cross. I thought it was so effective to get Amber over and over again to call other people liars. Yes, and I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not coming from that angle, coming from the psychology angle of it. It just feels very effective to make Amber over and over again call other people liars. And so the jury's left with, is everyone else lying and Amber's the one we should believe? It's hard to imagine the jury coming with that. And also, I think it just potentially gives more emotional energy to the jurors to like, yeah, we've got to get this woman who is calling everybody else liars, because we believe these other people. I thought it had the potential of emotionally and psychologically engaging with the jury.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that's the debate here, right? And clearly the chat is in disagreement, and which is good. Guys, just healthy conversation is good. Don't just watch a channel where you just agree with everything. Let's challenge each other. I really appreciate this insight in hearing, because what's amazing about a jury, right? It's going to be all these people that you see right here. They're not going to agree. So I got to hear all sides. That's what we try to do here, is have the conversations, because I think that's what's more interesting here, because it's the people who don't like Christopher. What if he's on the jury, guys? That's why you gotta please everybody and hear what's going on here. But Anne, you're right, because the other side.
We still like Christopher. It's not that we don't like Christopher.
But you said yours is the more.
People in the chat are agreeing with him.
There is a lot of agreement of both. But Anne, you are spot on with the emotional instinct. That's what I thought was happening too. I feel like she was trying to unnerve her. She was trying to have the "you can't handle the truth" moment. I thought we were going to get there for a moment because she was so unnerved. But I think Christopher's right. That long moment to let Amber gather herself, that was a missed opportunity. She should have at least tried to pounce for a little bit and then do the sidebar. There was an opportunity there that was unfortunate, because it just would have been great to see the mask slip, because Amber keeps playing this person. But I bet you if Camille had thought about that and knew that was going to happen, and then was able to pounce and see her turn so quickly to anger, I mean, that would have been pretty easy to do, don't you think, Anne?
No.
Really?
No, this is a really practiced manipulator. No, I don't think it would have been that easy to.
No, but I'm saying easy to get her from the to arguing. Then no, that's not true to Camille. Don't you think she would have had a hard time transitioning from one emotion to the next as Camille starts getting aggressive?
Yeah, and yes, I guess there would have been a benefit to having that quick change. I mean, we certainly saw the change from, when the cross started. We saw her demeanor be that not that emotional show anymore. She goes to a more aggressive show.
Yeah, exactly, Anne. And I'm thinking, does that influence the jury? Because I mean, if we're listening to it, it sounds like she's a wreck. But if you're watching her, she looks like she's acting. You know what I mean? And they're watching her there. So I'm thinking that's got to be ineffective. Yeah, her words are right. And like the sound is right, like she's blowing her nose or whatever. But then when you're watching her, she's moving in and out of different emotions, blowing her own humanization moment, because what she's saying is cool. You get, you feel for her, but she also admitted to be watching social media, which I don't understand why. Go ahead and ask everybody not to look at the news or social media, when she said literally for the past 6 weeks, I've been bashed on social media. She said that today, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, she did.
So, like, where's the penalty?
And she's been bashed on social media not because of Adam Wollman's statements. She's been bashed on social media for hating Johnny Depp. For audio tape that people heard, proof that she did it. That's
also,
why
thank you, Amber, for confirming your bee earring. I think everyone appreciates that. Now we all know.
Did she confirm it?
No, but I'm just saying by her saying that she's seen everything on social media. You think she wasn't trying to be a troll?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, please.
There's
Absolutely.
only one thing I do
Please.
disagree with about Christopher Melcher is that we do need his head in the comments. That's the only thing I do disagree. I've been trying to look for
emoji.
we have
I'll
a
work
Kim,
on it.
but where the hell is Christopher Melcher?
We will get on. All right,
And we need
I
an
want to
and.
come back, Kim. I know you didn't get a chance to react, but let's get the next minute because I know I've so much of this to watch, and then we'll come to you first.
Friend Rocky Pennington, right?
This is a great
That
moment.
is correct.
Your Honor, I'd like to move to admit this photograph.
Any objection to 13?
No, Your Honor.
All right, 1316 in evidence. You can publish to the jury.
This is a picture of you on May 28th, 2016, right, Ms. Heard?
I don't know when this was taken.
Bullshit.
This is the day after you obtained the domestic violence restraining order against Mr. Depp,
Yep.
right?
I have no idea when this image was taken.
Bullshit.
I did not take it.
There's no bruise on your face in this picture, is there?
Again, I don't know when this was taken,
Oh.
and also I'm outside. I was obviously wearing makeup.
This is also a
Obviously.
picture of you and Ms. Pennington
No, she's
on May
not.
28th, 2016, isn't it?
I don't know when this photo was taken, but it looks like the same outing as the picture prior.
Your Honor, I'm going to move to admit and publish Plaintiff's Exhibit 1317.
Any objection?
No, Your
All
Honor.
right, 1317 in evidence. You can publish.
There's no bruise on your face in this picture either, right?
I disagree. If it is taken when you represent it was taken, then obviously there's a bruise on my face. It's covered by makeup as per usual.
Let's zoom out of that picture for a moment, please. Thanks, Tom.
What makeup does she have on that she's covering? Kim, can you help? What? I'm sorry. Bullshit. There's no Amica cream. She's not wearing any. And we've had her own friends admit, her own friend, what was it, the one who was smiling? Johnny was attacking me. That girl, remember her? I forget her name. Even she was like, she never wore makeup. She never wore makeup. She doesn't. Am I crazy, Kim? Does this not look natural?
It does. I would also argue because I'm assuming that she would be covering here, right? Because that's where the bruise was. But the patterns of redness that are there are more consistent with normal redness that you would have as being a pale person. And if you were going to color correct, I don't think any of that redness would be coming through if you were any good at it, to be fair.
Facts.
Because I don't know if you guys can see any redness on my face, but I literally have rosacea as a pale person and people can't see it because I know what I'm doing. So I don't understand how, if you're going to have the same type of patches on each side, why it's not consistent. That's my point.
What do you think, Ann?
I think that's good. That's good analysis. Yeah. Look at the naturalness of the rest of her face.
You're the
Yeah.
one with the modeling pictures on your website.
Mhm.
That's why I asked.
Thanks for the compliment.
All right, here we go.
Thanks, Tom. That's Josh Drew in this picture, right?
Yes,
Good reveal,
that's
too.
correct.
And Miss Pennington
I actually never realized that Josh was there smiling after it as well.
That is correct.
in there too? Ms.
That is
Pennington
correct.
submitted a sworn statement on your behalf in support of your domestic violence restraining order, didn't she?
I believe she did, yes.
Mr. Drew also submitted a statement in support of your domestic violence restraining order.
I believe they both did, yes.
On the second day of your direct testimony, you testified that this was taken in the downstairs of the main apartment on December 15th, 2015. Do you recall that testimony?
Yes, I believe so.
So it's your testimony that Defendant's Exhibit 512 reflects damage to Penthouse 5 that occurred during the December 15th, 2015 incident. Yes?
I'm not quite sure from what incident this is when I see this photo in a vacuum without context.
Let's actually leave up Defendant's 512 and please pull up Defendant's Exhibit 725, which is already in evidence
Thank you.
in redacted form, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. You can publish.
During
Side
her
by side.
testimony, she knew every photo, when it was, and everything about it. But somehow now she's forgotten.
You've seen this photograph as well, right?
I have.
On the third day of your direct testimony, you testified that this photograph reflected spilled wine in Penthouse 5 on May 21st, 2016, didn't you?
Again, I don't know because I'm looking at a partial picture of a floor. So unless you remove the metadata you've covered up, we could then tell. If you
I didn't cover it up, Your Honor.
Could we unredact
Your Honor
them
did.
so we could get context?
That's how it's in evidence.
That's how it's in evidence.
Next
Well,
question.
the metadata next to it is so that
Ms.
to
Heard,
avoid this
Ms.
sort of
Heard,
confusion.
there is no
Oh my
question
God.
pending, and I would appreciate it if you wouldn't be making argument to the jury.
Sorry, I
It's
thought you had asked
inappropriate.
me about it.
No, I didn't ask you about anything. Taken on December.
I mean, that was a huge no-no, right? It just, again, speaks to her and exposes Amber for just, I will explain what Camille's trying to do here, jury. Sorry the help doesn't know what she's doing, but let me inform you. Can we get some Grey Poupon for it as well to this jury? That was sickening. Christopher, that's not a good look, right?
Well, yeah, I was surprised that Amber went there after all of the problems that we heard with the metadata or missing metadata for the photos that showed all of these alleged injuries. And then for her to say, well, hey, this wine on the floor thing, show me the metadata. Well, that's exactly what Johnny's been saying the whole time. So she kind of proved his point.
And what is your reaction to her just interrupting to instruct the jury like that?
Oh, yeah. Camille did a great job, I think, in calling her out on it. Yeah. So I'm kind of confused about this particular part. So were they saying that she presented the same picture and said they were two different dates? Is that what they were saying there?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And the photos that were submitted, I believe, please correct me if I'm wrong in the chat, were submitted by her team. So she's asking for the metadata to be removed from what her team asked to be taken out of evidence.
Exactly.
Okay, so I didn't want to admit this, but since Anne admitted it as well, I was confused with this section too. So I'm going to go ahead and say that I'm going to ask Christopher, is the presentation bad? Because it's not, is a jury, probably someone in the jury's confused as well, right?
Yeah, so again, I know when I was listening to the testimony, I thought, okay, I think I know where she's going with this, but it wasn't explained. Now, again, she can do that in closing. And, to my point earlier, so in closing tomorrow, it could be said like, hey, here's a photograph that Amber Heard has been telling us this whole trial shows damages to the penthouse on May 21, 2016, that these officers failed to see. The ones that she claims lied, they're also these rabid Johnny fans, I guess, at the LAPD, lied. And then here we're seeing this, photograph wasn't taken on that date. So again, I think explaining it in closing is better, but the jury might be hearing all this and being like, hey, I don't really understand it, but the job is to tie it up in closing for sure.
Yeah, the timeline's confusing for a lot of us. It's so hard to remember which, and that, again, I think I was, not to give them credit, but like you said, drown them in all the stuff, so that therefore it's hard to pinpoint when was what, and then of course Amber and team can use that to their benefit of, I don't remember which time this was, blah blah blah, and then they've blocked the metadata, so they're not gonna know. It's a whole corrupt system and thing they put in place to make it harder for Johnny.
November 15th, 2015, or May 21st, 2016.
If you remove the redacted metadata, you can find out. It's right there.
Or if you're telling the truth, you would know.
Recognize a portion of of spilled wine on a floor, and I'm supposed to know off the top of my head when you've lived through 5 years of this stuff? I don't think so. That's not how that works.
Ms. Heard, at the beginning of your cross-examination last week, I showed you an audio where you told Mr. Depp to tell the jury, tell the judge, tell the world that he is a victim of domestic abuse. Do you remember that?
That's correct.
And you testified you found it hard to believe that Mr. Depp would tell the world that he's a victim of domestic abuse, didn't you?
I said I find it hard to believe that he would do that knowing that he himself had beat me up for 5 years.
But he has told the world that he's your victim of domestic abuse, hasn't he?
Well, he started to say that only recently. He didn't make that claim up until very recently. So when we signed our divorce agreement and we signed a statement saying that neither party had ever said false claims for financial gain, it was relevant.
Why is she letting her say all this? Christopher, you're right.
I was the only one making the accusations. I was the only one making those claims. He wasn't doing that at the time, and he signed his name to it.
You didn't expect as many people to
That did not pay off. I don't know why she didn't shut her up. That was very strange.
up and testify on his behalf. That did you?
And again, all of this is opinion. It's all like, you didn't expect this, right? You didn't think this, right? None of it's factual.
Incorrect.
When you told this jury under oath that you never assaulted, when you told this jury under oath that you punched Mr. Depp because you thought of Mr. Depp pushing, when you told this jury under oath that you punched Mr. Depp because you thought of Mr. Depp pushing, expect Ms. Moss to agree to testify, that never happened, did you?
Incorrect. I know how many people will come out of the woodwork to be in support of Johnny.
So you think Ms. Moss needs to come out of the woodwork to testify for Mr. Depp?
That was good shade.
Everybody who was around in the 90s and the early aughts knew that rumor. I had heard that rumor from multiple people.
You didn't expect the manager of the Hicksville property, Morgan Knight, to come forward and testify that that was untrue, did you?
Incorrect. I've already been through trials with this man. I know how many people will come out in support of him.
When you told this jury under oath that you had no idea that the paparazzi would be at the courthouse on May 27th, 2016, you didn't expect a TMZ employee to show up to testify that TMZ had been alerted that you would be at the courthouse and knew exactly which side of your face to take a picture of, did you?
I know how many people will come out and say whatever for him. That's his power. That's why I wrote the op-ed. I was speaking to that phenomenon. How many people will come out in support of him and will fall to his power? He is a very powerful man, and people love currying favor with powerful men.
Can you stop there for a second?
Because this was a comment I want to get to.
Jail time?
I want to pause it because, again, huge missed opportunity because as Baskin Knight, I'm confused. This whole trial is about Amber writing the op-ed about Johnny and defaming him. She admitted on the twice stand that she wrote it. Not only did she admit she just wrote it, it's clearly about him. Like, right? So, Christopher, that was a huge damning thing that shouldn't have Camille jumped in that? Oh, so you are admitting, you admitted the op-ed and it's about Johnny and his power. Like, that would...
Yeah. Again,
she got it and then she didn't pounce on it.
That's right. It's you know, first of all, as we talked, the line of questioning is allowing for explanation of things that we never want explained. Now we hear the explanation, but we're not listening to the answer and pivoting off of that and saying, whoa, okay, so now you admit that you were talking about him. Now, the thing is that she would have to say yes, but she's also now explained the op-ed. And in her own defense is saying, you know, like, hey, this is what I was talking about. We are seeing the same thing right now. Powerful people, I mean, people coming out to surround themselves or to support a powerful person. And that's now given the floor to Amber Heard to explain her op-ed piece, her defense on cross. That should never happen. So yeah, we got an admission, but we didn't need the admission. Obviously, she was talking about him. I mean, that's the most obvious part of the case, that she's talking about him. So yeah, we got her to admit that, but then we also got it really the closing minutes of the case, Amber Heard saying, yeah, and this is what I was talking about. This is why I wrote this. This is why it was my truth.
It's interesting because it is almost like Camille was so on script she wasn't paying attention to some moments, because you can even see it here where she's like, just, I don't even mean to diss her, but like, she's looking and nodding and proud of these moments. Look, as she should be, but it is like almost like performative in a way, a little bit too, of just like, I get it. It's a lot of pressure. I don't mean to try to criticize, but clearly I am a little bit, just because we're whatever. It's not up to us. Jury's not listening to us either, so it doesn't really matter. But it is frustrating because I wish she would have just taken it in and listened and asked those questions and listened and used her responses like she did a couple times. She did, to her credit, but clear missed opportunity. Let me just get this last 50 seconds, and we can. I'll come to you guys.
I know how many people will come out and in favor. I have
For
seen
a
people
powerful
do this.
man?
I have Vasquez,
Currying
and I know
favor
that
and
firsthand. I've
risking
lived
jail
it.
time for committing perjury?
Excuse me? I didn't hear your question.
You didn't hear
Excuse
my
me?
question?
Ms. Vasquez, if you do
Curry-
mind, please just repeat the question. I didn't hear you.
Curry favor and commit perjury in this courtroom?
I have
For a
seen people
powerful
do this.
man?
I have seen people do this time and time again. That's why I wrote the op-ed.
You didn't expect Ben King, the house manager in Australia, to show up from England. He flew from England to testify that Mr. Depp's fingertip was found exactly where he said it would be.
Look at Whitney.
I have never heard Johnny testify to knowing where his finger was, or really, frankly, making a claim that he knew where it was when it was found. I've never heard Johnny claim that.
You didn't expect
Johnny
Keenan
doesn't-
Wyatt.
Johnny has never
Ms.
actually
Heard.
said that.
Ms. Heard.
And
I think the
Ben
jury
King,
can.
yes.
Ms. Heard, there's no question pending. But you didn't expect Mr. Baruch to weep.
Look at Whitney.
To weep for Mr. Depp. after what you've put him through and so many others with your lies.
I
did you?
relate to Isaac because he and I are
There's
the
no
only
further
ones who
questions, Your
cried
Honor.
on this stand.
Nothing further.
All right.
Yeah, no, girl, you have not cried on the stand. You've tried to cry on the stand. Isaac actually did cry on the stand. Whitney looks very distraught. There was all right. So go to you, Kim. You haven't had a chance to say anything. How do you feel like Camille did in the close? Were you expecting more? Was it enough for you? What do you think?
I think I always would have loved to have seen more. I think I agree with a lot of Chris's points. I think Camille could have pushed a little more on a couple different things, and there could have been more control as far as leaving open-ended opportunities for her to speak. But at the same time, the entire time I felt like I was watching Amber. I felt like I was watching like a cycle of seeing Regina George and Karen from Mean Girls. It was either super entitled, almost kind of nasty, very like, I do know everything about this actually, to, I have no idea. I don't know what that is. What do you mean? I'm so confused. And it was like, okay, which one is it? Which one is it? Do you know or do you not? And I feel like she's almost kind of taken on this character in this sense that she's got very comfortable with playing dumb and then got very comfortable with playing entitled. And it was the first time on the stand, really, for me through this whole process that I just found her, she made my skin crawl. Absolutely crawl. And all I could think of was seeing her yell at Camille, being unprofessional to Camille, being unprofessional to the jury. And when we know that the jury's like been moving their chairs so they won't look at her. And they've been sleeping through the depositions that her team gave in their defense. How was this a good idea? Because I can't imagine the jury being happy. And that doesn't mean that that's the way that cases should be looked at and the way that verdicts should be delivered. But don't piss off your jury. And I felt like that's what she did today. It was painful. I think that was my perspective. And I'm interested in that of, I'm curious, Christopher, of what do you think the jury felt while watching this? Do you think that it was good for Amber with her image with them or no?
Well, it's hard. And Andy, there was a clip that the thing that you had about Whitney up there that was playing when Kim started talking. I know. Yeah, right there. Stop right there.
Look at that
So
face.
to answer the question, Kim, what's in the mind of a jury? Well, look at these two individuals, Whitney, and I don't know who the lady is in the white next to her. They're obviously listening to the same information, but Whitney's got this scowl on her face and the other lady's laughing. So, two humans hearing the same information reacting completely differently. And that's what makes juries unpredictable. We don't know, how other people process stuff, and it's mostly due to their own bias. But that's the thing. And trying to read the body language, sometimes there's some accuracy to it, but I don't think at this point that the jury's going to make its decision on anything that they've heard today, because we're kind of spent. We're over. Where it's like, look, we spent 6 weeks. We've heard all this testimony. We're down to the finish line. Just get it over with. Let us start our deliberations. So maybe the jury's kind of even starting its checkout process already and saying, look, we're done. Don't try and just shove everything in at the last minute.
They're ready for the Memorial Day hot dog barbecues, right? And yeah, sorry.
Oh, sorry. You can go, Lewis. We'll go to you, Ann. Go ahead, Lewis. You'll go to Ann. What are your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts is like Christopher brings up a good point. Of course, he's a professional. A professional. Technically, maybe Camille didn't do as well, but perception-wise, I felt like she was dominating the conversation. I don't know if that matters with the jury and stuff like that. One thing in the video I don't think you played here, that if I was part of the jury, and I'm going to get people pissed off at this, but I don't care when I say this, people are going to get upset at me. Amber Heard said something about saying her truth. My opinion, there's only one truth. When she said her truth, to me, that's code word for I'm bullshitting. So there you go. The truth beats her truth, his truth, their truth, my cat's truth, everyone's truth. So that I hate from that. I just wanted to get that off my chest. Technically, the problem is also Amber Heard with her crying, and then the next second pissed, and then it's like it doesn't feel right. I think it would have been better for her if today was like a radio, something you listen to. But mannerisms, body language, big fail for Amber Heard.
Anne?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think that they wanted to. Let's see. I think that it would be good to have reached the jury with some emotion, and I think that's what happened. I think that some of the things Amber threw out there would potentially go against her with the jury emotionally and psychologically. And some of I really like this thing of having Amber set up to repeatedly call everybody else a liar. So the jury has this mandate of, so what are you going to do with this? Are you going to let this woman who we can prove has lied, and they can do all that in close. They can, reiterate all those lies. But are you going to let her do this? And some of the things that Amber said was, she went, well, what actual survivor of DV?
Here, I have, actually, to cue you better, I have the quote. Here it is. Sorry.
Of domestic violence wants that.
Great question.
Now, the video of Mr. Depp.
Well, so
She said,
I want that.
She said directly, what actual victim? Here it is.
Why would I want that? What actual survivor of domestic violence wants that?
What actual survivor? That was very slipping, no?
No, I think she's trying to present herself as I am a survivor, so I would not have set up this was about the TMZ thing, I think. But what it sets off in me is, yeah, you're not an actual survivor, and that's why you do all these things that go against what an actual survivor would do. And maybe that'll hit somebody in the jury, that they'll be motivated to hang on to the last minute of trying to get the rest of the jurors to see, no, we have to find against this woman. And another thing that she said, it was, I want my voice back. So that's sending it out to the jurors. You find for me, and I'm going to be everywhere spewing this. And I'm going to be the picture of DV. And so I'm hopeful that maybe people in the jury are going to go, no, we can't be on the edge about this. We've got to work and get the rest of the jurors to see what's really gone on in this case.
Yeah, I mean, it's never a good defense, I feel like, and she did it when, like, if I were to leak it, I would have leaked it so much better. That is such a telling manipulation mask clip that it's like, well, if you either are that type of person or you're not. And I've been manipulative in my life. I'm pretty sneaky if I need to be, right? And I just, that's not a good, you don't want to, in your defensive, I'm not manipulative, but if I was manipulative, I'm already thinking about all the million ways I would be manipulative. It's just, hello.
Basically, I
so
don't know how to
stupid.
leak information to the internet, but if I did, I would do it way better.
I would get a burner account with a burner email. How would you have done it? Like, oh yeah, no, I would have made sure my IP address was blah blah blah. IP.
Yeah,
it's
I definitely would never have edited out the parts of the video that coincidentally make me look bad. Setting up the laptop so it's clear that it was taped without consent. I wouldn't have clipped the end part out that showed me laughing about it, because that, of course, would make it not scary. And I certainly wouldn't have uploaded it to a Dropbox account. No, I would have never done any of that stuff.
Never.
I'm much
Never
smarter
would have
than
even
that.
came to my mind. I can't believe it just came out just now. Wow, weird. But yeah, exactly. And it's like, I saw a few people. Was it Jason? There was a couple big. Thank you for this one, Jason Kaneen. Is it Kaneen? I don't know how to say your name, dude. But thank you so much for your support. Honestly, it felt like we were so close to that few good men moment today. You can't handle the truth. I've been saying that the whole time. Couldn't agree more. Thank you for your generosity. But if you're gonna go there, you got to be listening better, and you got to go off script. If you're gonna go the emotional way for TV and try to unnerve Amber Heard, I feel like then you have to press Amber Heard, and then when you hear it, press harder. And I just, while I love Camille still, I get it. It's a lot of stress. I still think we have a shot here. I do. In watching it, and I'm no lawyer, I probably would have done I would have done a billion times worse, guys. But I think the lesson here is she just listened a bit more. Amber gave her a few venues that she could have just pounced down and actually attempted to do what I think she was trying to do, which was get her unnerved. But then as I hear her script, I don't know if that was really her goal. It just felt like she was there to, right? You didn't do this, right? Yep, right? And I don't know. I don't know. We'll see. Anne disagrees, and I'm glad someone does. And I know some in the chat do. It's nice to hear her call out all these people as liars. Go ahead, Christopher.
Yeah,
Final
and
thought on this.
my final comment, because we got to run, but yes, and I'm not critical of any of the lawyers in any of the case, either side of the case. Okay, it's very difficult to do that job, and
but you're being critical because I'm making you on a show where we offer commentary.
well, what I'm saying is that I'm not critical of the person, but I can look at the job and saying here's like what we could learn from that and how it could have been done better. But one important and I think vital point was scored on cross by Camille today with Amber Heard, which was showing that photograph, because we had saw that, we had been commenting about it. You got Bruce walking out the courthouse, no Bruce, and laughing the next day. Amber Heard coming out of the courthouse, getting her TRO, dressed like a widow, leaving a funeral with a big shiner on her eye, compared to laughing with Rocky and Drew the next day. That, we've seen those images. We respond to those. We say, this proves the lie. And before this morning, the jury had not seen those photographs, at least to my knowledge, together, confronted with Amber on the stand. So I don't want to detract from that. That was key to get that information, because to me, when I'm thinking about the case and saying, okay, why do I believe one side or the other? This image comes to mind. And so now the jury sees that, and part of bias, and and Ann knows about this stuff, but it's primacy and recency. We talk about some people anchor on the first thing they heard, other people anchor on the last thing they heard. This is one of the last things that the jury was told or shown in this trial. So I don't want to detract from that. That was done.
They can play this again during their closing. Like they'll have a PowerPoint of moments that can be up there, or no?
Yeah, exactly. They can do it as a PowerPoint presentation. They can show the images. The jury will have those images. This is a fairly high res image. You can see. I mean, it's incredible because the paparazzi are taking thousands of these pictures while they're walking down the street. But her head is tilted upwards. Her cheek is beautifully displayed in that image.
Yep.
Look at that. Beautifully displayed for the world to see.
And that's the side right there is where it was.
I mean, and no gigantic pancaking of, foundation and concealer or whatever it's called.
No Amica cream.
Displayed. So this is incredible evidence brought out by Camille Vasquez on the cross of Amber, closing things. So I do not in any way want to detract from this incredible moment. Very powerful evidence. Finally, the jury's going to see this because, again, in my mind, visually, this is the evidence that shows Amber Heard not only lied, but faked a bruise, fooled a Superior Court judge into getting a restraining order, called TMZ, all to hurt Johnny and to make herself look good. What an awful person to do something like that. And then the next day to be joking around with her friend. So that picture tells it all. So
right, and even just how you laid it out, that's where we need to hear that kind of stuff on the closing to really hit it home of just wrapping all these things together. So there it is. There's some hopeful. If anybody was getting nervous, there's the hopefulness. Yes, we could have gotten, I did it. I hit him. I'm the monster. Yeah, that would have been nice. But that was very unlikely. She's too calculated, as Ann even said. So well said. Make sure you follow Christopher over on Twitter. We will hopefully tomorrow have him back to go through the closing arguments. I appreciate you, Christopher. Get some rest. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Bye.
Hi, Mr. Melcher.
So Ann, Lewis, Kim, we got you guys still here. I do want to try and quickly, it's a long one, this show, but I do want to try and quickly get through Dr. Huge Lies. We have a 3-minute back and forth with Dr. Huge Lies. Sorry. Yeah, Dr. Hughes. We call her Dr. Huge Lies. But this is the cross, right? Kim, is what we have here?
Yes.
Here we go.
Yes.
Let's watch Dr. Hughes coming back out. There was a moment prior. Did we get the time code of her cutting
I
out?
sent you one in boss level, I think,
Okay,
or
hold
in our
on. Sorry,
combo.
let me go there quicker. Your notes are 107. Okay, got it. Let me actually pull that because I think that's important. Hold on. Hugging the Cactus feed, and then
subscribe to Hugging the Cactus, man. That channel is going to be doing some great stuff after this too.
Yeah, I hope to keep that going. You guys have been hanging out there watching the trial, so thank you. All right, here we go. This is the moment.
And they still give us very valuable information to individuals who
So here she was.
are not linked to a specific legal criteria, but they do have information.
Is this 60?
Let me go back a little bit further, I guess.
Stand trial. We have very clear measures that can track that legal criteria. The next level are forensically relevant instruments. And those instruments are not linked to a specific legal criteria, but they do.
Yeah, it may have been.
That's where it's looking at the consensus-driven procedure where you're looking at, I used a standard.
She's talking about the process of the notes.
Would you agree with that?
Here we go.
Now, Dr. Curry said you used improper methods. Would you agree with that?
No, I would not.
Why? Please explain.
As I testified to you all several weeks ago, I used a standard forensic procedure that is well established in our field. It is a multi-method, multi-hypothesis-driven procedure where you're looking at a variety of different details and tests and external data
psychiatric
to
words.
arrive at an opinion, and you're looking at the consistency across that data. There are three sort of sets of tests that we use as forensic psychologists, and I think that's where it seems that Dr. Curry seems confused. We have forensic assessment instruments.
She seems confused. All right, so there's shade being thrown at Dr. Curry throughout that says there was a lot of this, her just justifying all the stuff that came out of her mouth. But let's watch now the cross, which I thought was a little bit more interesting. Here we go.
Dr. Hughes, do you recognize what the National Center for PTSD is?
What it is?
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
And they publish the PTSD checklist for DSM-5.
That's correct.
That what we've been calling the PCL-5.
Correct.
All right. And are you familiar with the document that's on your screen?
Yes.
Right. What is it?
It's the instruction manual to how to administer the PCL-5.
Okay. Can we blow up the second paragraph on the right? That's the PCL-5 should not be used as a standalone diagnostic tool. When considering a diagnosis, the clinician will still need to use clinical interviewing skills and a recommended structured interview, e.g., the CAPS-5, to determine a diagnosis. Correct? That's what the manual says.
Right, and this manual also says that this is a screening instrument, so when you do the clinical interviewing, you absolutely can determine diagnosis.
So the answer is yes. Okay. You said that we should read the manual. Would you also agree with me that we need to read the directions on these tests?
Sure.
Okay. This is the CTS-2 that you administered as part of this battery of tests that you indicate you did in relationship to your diagnosis.
Right, this is the conflict tactic scale too.
It says, using the calendar, please mark the approximate dates during the past year when you were abused by your partner or ex-partner. You didn't use any calendar, did you?
I did not use a calendar because she was already out of the relationship. As I said, these are static risk factors, so they don't change. So I oriented to the time of the relationship.
Ma'am, it's fair to say that this examination that you gave specifically indicates that you were supposed to look over the past year. And that's not the language?
No, that's one administration. People use this instrument for if you're in an acute situation in a relationship, trying to get a better assessment of the current behaviors. We can use it retrospectively, like I just stated, and in homicides and looking back about what are the serious risk factors that were in this relationship.
I didn't ask you about anything other than, don't the instructions limit this test to the previous year?
You can give this test not only on the previous
Nope,
year.
asking you about the instructions.
But I'm telling you how the test is administered in clinical practice and in forensic practice.
And opposing counsel can come up and ask questions about it. I'm asking you about the instructions. And the instructions say, look over the past year.
All right, so that was the basic gist, and I want to get Anne's feedback on this because and people got mad at me on Twitter when I thought this was still kind of meh. I was like, this seemed like a semantics argument, and I'm curious, Anne, how important and really how much of a gotcha this is. I don't like Dr. Huge Liar. I think there's a lot they could have hit harder, but he really just focused on the fact that she didn't do the form properly. And sure, that's a knock. It's a fair point to bring out. But is that really the make or break? Does that negate the entire thing because she didn't put the form and instead put it in notes? What's your honest feedback on that, Anne?
Well, I think that you're speaking to when he goes on and he talks a lot about the CAPS 5 and how she didn't fill out the CAPS 5, which is the PTSD gold standard. She didn't fill it out properly. And he also talks about, so he's introduced here, he got onto the 1 year thing. I don't really favor his arguments there, but the PTSD part. So he talked about the checklist and how, and we didn't go over it in this part, but how she did the checklist, which is just a list of, has this happened to you? Has this happened to you? Has this happened to you? And easy for somebody who wants to feign PTSD to say, yeah. And that's what, it came out today. What Dr. Hughes did initially was just that checklist in terms of PTSD testing, not the CAPS 5, the gold standard. And she diagnosed Amber with PTSD. And then about a year later, Dr. Curry does the CAPS 5, the real PTSD test, finds it negative. So then Dr. Hughes comes back to Amber and said, well, we got to do this now, and does the CAPS 5, and then doesn't do it properly. But she's already on the line she's given a PTSD diagnosis. So now she's just covering her whatever and creating a sort of mock-up of the gold standard test to say, yeah, I'm right, but she doesn't fill it out properly. And so I think he was effective today in showing her as manipulating results. She used the term, you start out with a multi-hypothesis. I wouldn't expect the jury to really, it was just gobbledygook at that point. But to just point out, she says you start as a multi-hypothesis. She didn't. She started out with one hypothesis, and that is that Amber Heard is an abuse survivor because women are abuse survivors, men are bad. And so she goes about proving that, or finding some way she can back up her bias. And I think that they did an effective job today showing that she manipulated the results.
So,
and also she doesn't follow instructions, right, Anne? I mean, that's
she doesn't follow instructions. She's not.
Yeah. That's a fair point.
Behaving in a forensic psychologist manner.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's what I got out of it. As if I was in the jury, I would have been like, well, this lady's not really following directions, so her stuff gets thrown out the window, her credibility.
Yeah.
Yeah,
She's not a
look,
professional.
to be clear, it's not a bad point, but I just feel like there was more they could have really hammered her on against. But go ahead, Kim, what are your thoughts?
I was going to say, I think part of this is we got to take a look at that. She's formed this diagnosis by taking 12 data points, 12 tests. 8 of those data points are used in therapeutic settings, not in diagnostic. So we've now gone from having 12 data points to 4. Now we're looking at the 4. And we know with the CTS2, I did a little bit of research into this. I took a look at it. And this is a very controversial test in the first place. There's a lot of people that don't like it. And one of the reasons they don't like it is because of the year portion, and not because it doesn't go back far enough, but because it asks for too much information. Because people that are going through trauma have memory lapses. They have difficulty being able to bring back, well, how many times has that person hurt me in the past year? They can't possibly give that information. The test is supposed to be for more immediate results. So by that same type of logic, if you're going back 5 years and you're not referring to a calendar, you're not referring to anything, how reliable is this memory? And the idea is that if you're going to be diagnosing someone, you need to be diagnosing someone in the current, not what they were 5 years ago. That doesn't make any sense. So the CTS2 falls. And then we go into the CAPS test, which we then find out she did 10 days after Dr. Curry, which I personally have questions on of like, if you do the same test 10 days apart, would that not give you a bit of an upper hand to be like, oh, I think I know how I can do this to, manipulate my results because I did it once. So the only accurate CAPS test at that point would be the first one, which would have been with Dr. Curry. So the CAP test dies. And we start going through everything and realizing, okay, so there really isn't a lot of evidence here to back up Dr. Hughes' opinion. And as a psychologist that is being like, I'm so well respected and I know all of these things, it's like, you did just realize that like 90% of your evidence is now dead. Why are you an expert? Why are we listening to you? And that was my frustration with it, is I'm watching all of these like things crumble down and I'm going, I don't think people are going to understand why, but it's so bad. Like it's it's embarrassing for her as a practitioner. Andy, I think you're muted.
I was gonna say, I wish you had done the cross because I feel like you just laid it way better than sadly Wayne Dennison did, because to me, again, he was focused on these semantics that, fair enough, and everyone's saying are important. And I get it. They show she's not like doing the proper protocols, etc. But what's that really mean, right? And what do these tests actually prove? And all that stuff you just said, I think was so much more effective and just frustrating. The jury, and the layman's didn't really understand the difference in all the psychobabble.
And I mean, to be clear, I am not a medical professional, but I've been on the other side. I've had all those tests given to me. And even at points, I've had those tests that I didn't want to answer them truthfully because I didn't want my result to be what it was. You want everything to be fine. You don't want to be somebody that has a mental illness. You don't want to be that person. So I've seen it from that perspective. I've had to go through all those tests. And there's so many things that those tests bring out that you don't want them to bring out. You don't want that evidence in front of you because it's hard. And it's just so obvious here that it was like Amber went through a masterclass of diagnosis with Dr. Curry, and then she ended up with Dr. Hughes, and they went, okay, how do we manipulate this now? Because that's exactly what it looks like, to me, my opinion.
What do you think, Ann?
Yeah, well said. Yeah, and anybody can go online and find the some of these tests. Certainly, the checklist, I'm confident, would be easy to find.
Yes.
I don't know about the CAPS 5. That might not be something that you can find the actual questions for. I'm not sure. But somebody like Amber, it's just really relatively easy for her to make an attempt at skewing the results. And that's why Dr. Curry was so effective in being able to present that there's tests that we do to check for this. Because of course some people are going to come in and want to manipulate these results. And Dr. Hughes is totally in denial about that.
So in a versus of Dr. Hughes versus Dr. Curry, we are all giving Dr. Curry the win. Is that what I'm hearing?
I love Dr. Curry.
All right. Sounds like Dr. Hughes got the
fatality.
Well, there you go. What an amazing show. This was like 4 hours and 43 minutes. Oh my gosh. If you want to see the full stream, if you missed it live, it's always free if you catch us live after every trial day and just every weekday. If you missed it, hit the join button, become a member today. You can pick a level, hit the join button, and then you can go catch the replays. It's a perk of being a member here. It helps support our channel. There's a members only playlist on the channel page. If you go to PopcornedPlanet.com, and you'll see it there to be able to watch the full replay. Thanks to Kim for holding out for the long haul. Christopher Melcher, all of our amazing guests, Greg Ellis, Ann Silvers, Steph the Alternerd's not here, but we still love her anyway. Louis Lecca from Nerd Report, who we're going to raid next, and everybody else who beautiful people here. Paige, Alicia, Mike, all your amazing work. Thank you guys. Linda, everybody in the chat and the community, you guys are doing amazing work. We'll be back tomorrow for the closing arguments. Oh my gosh, the season finale before the finale. Join us tomorrow as we cover it for you. We'll be back live tomorrow afterwards, and so much more. I'm also dropping a video. Hope you checked it. Amber's speech and the hypocrisy of it. Make sure you click it. In fact, when it's available, it'll be right there on the left. So check it out. Thank you guys so much for watching. Enjoy your day. We'll be back tomorrow and beyond here on Popcorn Planet. Now go to Nerd Report. Nerd Report, live viewers, you're going to